Okay, so Dylan, we are live on the stream.
Excellent. Nice to
Yeah.
see you.
Hey, you too. Yeah, it's we don't get to see each other very often these days, even though we're not that far not that far apart these days.
Yeah, a
You're
couple
in
ferry
Vancouver,
rides, I guess.
a couple of ferry rides away, exactly. Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. Do me a favor, if you're tuned in, maybe leave a quick comment and just let us know that we're both you're able to hear us. That would be awesome. Wherever you're tuning in from. We're both in British Columbia today, which is I'm usually here. Dylan's more of a world traveler than I am, but
Hmm. Yeah, I'm in town until end of August, and then taking off again in September.
I
Through.
I know that we chatted fairly recently, and you're going September, October, November, December. You're going to be on the road. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Heading over to back to Europe. It's going to be an interesting trip, actually. Starting in Crete, working our way up to Athens through the islands, and then northern Italy, and then to Scotland, and finishing in London. It's going to be a challenging trip because it's 4 months, and the average stay in each place is just under a week. And I'm going to have all my computer equipment. I'm going to try to be productive and combine the work with the
Wow.
sightseeing and the, and the transit. It's gonna be
Hey, morning, Tim. Yeah, well, I can imagine. Hey, Emmanuel. Emmanuel's joined us as well. And if you want to speak Spanish to Dylan, feel free. Emmanuel, Rafael, if you speak Spanish, I don't know. I'm just going by
okay.
the name that maybe you do. Morning, Candace. But yeah, Dylan, when he travels, which is quite extensively, he travels with his setup. So I don't know, 4 screens, 6 screens, whatever it is you travel with.
Yeah,
Your
five
computer,
screens.
because you work anywhere you are in the world. So I can't even imagine. I was with you one time. I think maybe we were in Nashville or Memphis or somewhere, and you were tearing down and setting up, and I just thought, holy cow, do you do this every trip?
Yeah, you get used to it. You just kind of know where everything goes, and you just. I mean, it'd be nice to have a press a button, everything pops out. I don't know. I
maybe
love
one
into
day, maybe.
one of those laptops where you flip up the screen and then screens come out of the laptop. That would be kind of
Oh,
nice.
nice.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day. So, buenos dias, Husum. Dylan, can you see the comments where you are there?
I cannot. No.
Okay.
Just 1 second. Let me just type the chat button.
Yeah, if you there should be a chat button on the side that you can. I know there's a way to do it. Bradley waves hello. So yeah, just for example, I if there's any comment that I'm going to reference, I'll pop on the screen, and I don't know if you can see that now, Dylan, or not, but I'll make sure you hear everything. So hey, yeah, thanks to everybody for tuning in. And so what we're doing today, as I mentioned on, I don't know if we mentioned this last Friday or not. I think we did when Brandon and I were on live, but Brandon is off on his annual fishing trip in, I think it's called Zabalas, BC. So it's on the west coast of Vancouver Island. And I haven't been, but I've been to places like that, and it's amazing to go out. So he and a few buddies have made that into an annual thing. So he's not with us today, but my very good friend Dylan, who's on the screen here, he's the total opposite type of investor than I am. For those of you who
Investor.
know, investor, yeah, trader. For those of you who know, like Brandon and I were pretty much buy and hold, long term, fundamentals, do our due diligence, do our research. And I remember a day, I think it was, geez, probably, I sent you a picture yesterday, Dylan, that of us at your apartment back, I think it was at 8 years ago today? No, 7 years, 5 years ago today.
5 years
And
ago, yeah.
5 years ago, and I was there during trading hours, and Dylan was busy, working away there, and he made a trade and made a few bucks, and I said, "Oh, I'd never heard of this company. What does it do? What do they do?" And Dylan said, "I have no idea." And you were trading the screen, I guess, trading the numbers, or maybe what the heck does a day trader do?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but when you're really short term, um, what the company does and the fundamentals and all that, it's not really important. It's basically just uh, a vehicle where money's flowing in and out of, and you just can try to jump in and out and carve out some money. If something has news and there's a whole bunch of money coming into it, it doesn't really, the fundamentals are more for a kind of intermediate to a longer term. As an active trader, you're just kind of looking for things where there's a lot of money flowing in or out, or just a lot of interest, some kind of catalyst. And yeah, it's just everything just becomes a squiggly line. And if you study technical analysis and charts, you know, yeah, the name is kind of irrelevant. I know that drives some people crazy, but you know, it's
Well, yeah, no, I get it. For your style of investing, it doesn't really matter what the company's expected to do in 2 years or the long runway. Obviously, and you know the way I invest, and so those things do come into play. Like I sort of subscribe to the old find a company that's growing in a growing industry. We expect it to be here in 10 years, and trading at a good valuation, and add that to my portfolio or maintain it, etc. Now, I just want to say to the folks online here, if there are any questions that you have specifically for Dylan, please put them into the chat there, because I'm sure a lot of people have sort of the like. I remember Dylan, you and I did a video I think back in December of last year where you came on as a guest, and we put it up as a long form video, and you sort of talked about what you did. But I want you to be able to also answer any very specific questions. But I want to do this. I want you to tell us how you got started in this day trading arena, because I think it's just a hilarious story, and the way everything came about. And I could tell it, but I won't do it justice. Maybe you could give us a quick summary of how you got started as a day trader.
Well, I was in university, staying on campus, and I just wasn't really stimulated by the program I was taking. Trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what to major in. And a friend of mine was, I don't even know much about this. For me, the stock market was just that, you see the news and it has the quotes of the Dow and NASDAQ, whatever. And a buddy of mine says, he started telling me about it. He's like, oh, I'm making money. I'm making money shorting. It was a raging bull market at the time, but he found this strategy where you just looked for kind of garbage companies that have had huge run-ups because there was some kind of buzzword. You know how like in frothy markets you get buzzwords. That right now it's AI, right? Like every company wants to have in their news conference they mention the words AI. It's gives them a little boost. So yeah, there were all these companies, garbage companies that were flying, doubling, tripling, quadrupling, and what he would do is just wait till it ran up, wait till the volume kind of drifted off, and then started to roll over, and just short them and sit on them for a day or two. And it worked most of the time. Obviously there was some scary plays there, but so I started doing it with him, and we were doing it together, and had some pretty wild, mostly really high win rate, but some really scary, almost devastating losses. Obviously when you're short selling, there's 100%. You can lose more than your investment, right? So yeah, we started doing that. I had to actually go downtown to get one of those phone-up brokers, because for short selling, you didn't have to borrow the shares if you had a full-service broker. So I went into the office, and I was just dressed like a poor college kid. I remember the guys were kind of snickering at me. Because
you weren't faking it. You were a poor college kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I was, and I was just a walk up. So the secretary just passed me off to this guy, and he walks up and he's like, okay, takes me to his office. This long walk down the hall to his office, and I see other guys kind of doing a double take as we're walking by. I was like, whatever. I mean, it worked out for him. Paying $80 to $120 a side commissions.
$80 to $120 per trade, per side.
Per trade, yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy to think about that now. Wow. And just got a full phone-up broker, and I would just call him up with my trades, and it was going really well for probably almost a year. I caught the very end of the bull market, and but yeah, there were some like stocks that started at $2 and then went to 10. I started shorting at 10 and 12, and then they went to like $40 or $80. And there was one trade where I was getting run over, and I think I was a few percent away from getting cleaned out, and I just turned my phone off because my broker's ringing the phone off. One of those little Nokia cells. So I turned it off, and I'm lying on my bed like in the fetal position. And I said, screw this. I went and walked around campus. No idea what's going on. I get home, and I looked at it, and it popped a little further, and then it just collapsed. It was still pretty heavy underwater, but I was like, oh, geez, what happened? So I checked my voicemail, and of course the broker's leaving me all these, where the hell are you messages? And then finally the last message says, I did not close you out. I did not close you out. I just want you to know. And I got half of my account back. But man, that was it's just, yeah, it's a
dodged a bullet on that one.
Dodged a bullet. That happened. There was a couple others that weren't as bad, but it's the thing about short selling. You really gotta manage your risk and not trade like a dumb college kid. You know?
Well, Dylan, for the most part, I mean, I've never sold short in my life, and I don't know if you agree with this, but for the vast majority of people, I don't think short selling is a good idea. We can maybe talk about this in a minute. I know how much work you've put into day trading, and there's sort of this perception out there that, be a day trader and make a whole bunch of money really quick, like sort of a get rich quick thing. And obviously, you can talk about it in a minute. That's not the case, really. But Bradley is one of the regular contributors to the channel here, and he's left a message or a comment here. And his question is Dylan long or short in these markets? Now, I think I know the answer to that, but if you don't mind just sort of throwing in, can you answer that question?
Yeah, I've got a small short on right now in the NASDAQ futures, just because gapped up this morning, came back, tested yesterday's low and bounced, but it's kind of a weak bounce back to the middle of the range. It's rolling over a little bit. Some of the big tech stocks, which make up a lot of the NASDAQ, are still pretty weak. So Nvidia is at the low of the days, Meta is at the lows. Being OPEX, you can get some kind of crazy moves. So I got a small short to seeing if it can test the lows. But and so you're exciting.
You have those on right now as we're talking.
Yeah.
So, and I think I said in I don't know where I said it, but somewhere I sort of gave everybody a warning. I just said we're live market hours. You're actually trading right now. Your livelihood depends on this. So if you have to bug out for a quick second, I'm just going to share a quick screen here. This is what is happening out there right now. I'll throw the heat map on. I think that's maybe a 6 month. That's a 1 day performance there. So you just mentioned Nvidia down a couple percent today, Meta down 2.71. I think you were just talking about those two companies, and that's sort of what's happening out there today. Tesla, negative a little bit again today. I know it's had a pretty rough go of it. I'm just going to click over here to say to a 1 week performance, and that's what we're seeing on there. A lot of green, but the NASDAQ I think has been down pretty sharply this week, whereas the markets in general are. I think today Dow was like 9 or 10 consecutive up days or somewhere in that range, so very strong. But
I got that exact same. I had that exact same heat map on my screen here.
So you use this to.
It's great. It's great. I can't think of a better way to see just a picture of the whole market, right? Because it's. I used to have all the sectors and indices kind of in a watch list, and it shows how much they're up or down. But those are numbers, right? You got to look at it and see. Whereas this is just colors. It's brightness, the brightness of the colors and the way they're organized. It's a really great way to just get a picture of what's moving, where the rotations are. It's pretty.
This is something we looked at last week. I looked at the price to book heat map. And I don't even know, you probably don't even pay attention to this because that's very much a fundamental metric. But this is basically red is showing, overvalued the way I interpret it, or certainly above where you'd expect these to be. But you're looking at this and you're seeing some opportunity down here in the banks. I don't know if you can see what I'm on the screen or not. I guess you can. But also, a lot of red out there. So it's I do use that heat map as well, just sort of as a, like you said, Dylan, just like a quick screen, right, to see what's happening out there. So Bradley. Okay, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, so Bradley, I don't know. Your question is Dylan long or short? I think you could be long an index, a company short that day, or I don't think you trade so much on individual companies nowadays, right? You're trading more indices, or you're trading options, or what's your strategy?
Just the index futures, and an average trade hold of like 15 minutes. So I can't say, I could be long in like half an hour from now. So it's not like I don't have any positions or, which I kind of regret. It's just when I started doing this, I was, I didn't have any money and working on the side, and I needed the cash flow, so everything was just really short term, and so that's just kind of what I've done, and I find it difficult to buy and hold just because I'm looking at it all day. I would be looking at it. Like when you put on an investment that you're planning to hold for a year or forever, you're not watching every tick, right? You've done your research and just let it play out. Whereas when I've got those and when those are seeing those tick up and down on my screen, it's harder to stay in them. And I know some players they do both, and they'll have separate accounts. So there'll be their short-term account, and then when any positions they do in the long term, they enter it, but then they don't look at it. It's a totally separate account. So I got to do something like that. It'd be nice to diversify a little bit.
Well, I know you've been a day trader for over 20 years, so I'm sure if the markets go south, or I'm assuming if they go south, you can still make money, right? Assuming if something really bad happens to your account, you can sell one of your Lambos and just hold yourself over for a month or two with your lifestyle, right?
That's right. Yeah, one of my Lambos. Yeah.
I know, it's so funny. You must get a kick out of it. Well, if you watch some of the YouTube videos, and I haven't seen it probably a few years ago when the markets were. Well, the markets are hot right now, but there was a period of time, I think, when YouTube financial channels sort of took off, and every second channel was, a get rich quick thing. You must get a kick out of those.
Yeah, it's funny. I was in.
Or do you watch them?
How long ago was it? Probably like 15 years ago. I spent about 6 months in Taiwan, and I was staying at my buddy's place, and he had this local cable, and there was probably 10, 20 channels on there, and I swear like almost half of the channels it was some really old Taiwanese guy with candlestick charts and going off in Mandarin. I didn't understand what he was Taiwanese. And I'm like, what? This is on TV, and you flip the channel, and there's some other guy. Oh, I'll buy this one, and like they were all big candlesticks, and I guess they were talking about it. It was bizarre, like on regular television. I know gambling is huge over there. So
right,
retail trading was a little further along out there. But
let me ask you that question. Yeah, go ahead, finish that thought there.
The YouTube get rich quick. I mean, they're a joke because anyone that does this for a living, or people that have tried to do it and not succeeded. Mm-hmm. You can see right through that, right? They're going for people that don't know any better, and I've had the opportunity to speak and even sit with some really big traders, like huge guys that have 6-figure days regularly, and work at banks and hedge funds, and they don't act like that at all. Guys that have really made it, the market beats you so often. He almost kind of humbles you, right? And those guys, it was weird. They brag, but they don't brag about their winners. They brag about their losers. It's like, oh, I took this huge loss in that, or I took this huge loss in that. It's kind of like a backhanded way of bragging, saying, oh, look, I took this massive loss, and I'm still in the game. But they just real traders kind of have this humbleness about them because the market humbles you. It's not easy. It's not something you just pick up and get rich quick. I mean, get rich quick. Your broker's going to get rich quick, and the person selling you the course or the chat room is gonna make money. But it's a shame because people fall for it, and I've fallen for similar things. And they get you excited. They tap into your greed. They just these little tricks to kind of gain credibility with you, and that's one of the things things about finance is it's really easy to finance is such a mystery to so many people that if you just learn some of the jargon, and if you just know a little bit more than the average person, they'll think you're gods and they'll give you their money. Yeah. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that you should not be giving your money or taking advice from. And so it's unfortunate. I mean, all I can do is just tell people is if anybody's selling you the lifestyle, they're taking pictures of themselves, selfies with laptops in the Caribbean. First of all, nobody uses a laptop on the beach. You can't you can't see your screen in direct sunlight.
You can't see it anyway, right? Yeah.
No, you can't see your screen, and anyway, be wary of those people.
Well, you mentioned Dylan. in your style of investing, you brought the word humbled, and I've felt for years. I mean, one of the first things that I learned, so I'm going back to 1993, 94 when I got into business, was you got to be humble, because it's just the market will smack you right back down to earth. And one of the biggest things I think for younger investors that you can learn is you're going to make mistakes along the way, and nobody bats 1,000, right? And in fact, the more aggressive you are, probably the bigger mistakes you're going to make. And I'm not against being aggressive, but you got to learn from those mistakes. And I certainly have over the years. And sometimes it's saved me a lot of money. Sometimes it's cost me money because I maybe been a little more conservative than I should have been. Or I know you've said, that maybe a day will go by and we'll chat and you'll say something like, "Oh, there were some opportunities out there that I, missed." Obviously, in hindsight, you know that, but at the time you didn't. And you're just even as what I would say someone with, I would call it a risky style of investing. And you could differ with that, but you still have your limits. You know what you can set. But actually, let me ask you that. Before I go there, I'm going to ask you about your perception of risk, but a couple of quick other comments here. Again, Bradley had left a comment. Are you expecting the rebalancing to cause a sell-off? So I'm assuming you mean the rebalancing in like the NASDAQ, I think, is doing a rebalancing right now. And does that affect your trading at all or no?
You mean like the options expiration? Or I didn't know if there was an index rebalancing today or this.
I think there is. Maybe someone can fill me more in on that. But basically, my understanding is that they're rebalancing some of the heavier weighting or coming down. I think in the NASDAQ 100. But I'm not 100. I haven't looked at that specifically.
Oh, you mean like funds rebalancing, like between like altering their bond and equity exposure based on? I guess that happens.
I think in the NASDAQ itself, but maybe Bradley probably is up to speed on that thing. So maybe Bradley, you can leave a comment here. But but because from time to time, for example, the S&P will rebalance, right? And they'll knock a couple of names out, put a couple of names in, and you're going to see movement on those companies, but probably doesn't affect you too much, I wouldn't think.
I don't think so, no. A long time ago, those used to be pretty wild. That was actually one of the trades was the Russell imbalances were crazy. The strategy was look for companies that get deleted from the index, and then they would crush them into the close.
Yeah.
They would drop like 40-50%, and all you had to do was buy the close and sell them in aftermarket when the selling subsided. And that was great for a little bit, but they've kind of ironed that out. The rebalancings between the funds and the market makers and on the algorithms. I don't think those have as big an effect. Even like end of the day mark on call, those imbalances, you get a little bit of movement, but I don't think it's gonna. I don't think so personally.
Good. Another question I want to run by you here, Dylan. There's a viewer here, Anony one, maybe anonymous, I'm not sure. But he or she says, when the Fed raises rates next week, there will be a nice pullback and a buying opportunity for the bull market to resume. So from someone in my place, I mean, you look at those things. The Fed does have an effect, obviously. Typically, the market anticipates where the rates are going to go. So there's usually a 60, 70, 80% chance of what's going to happen. So the markets will react in that way. Does the Fed rate affect you in the short term? You
don't. It creates opportunity, especially if there's a Fed announcement where there's some uncertainty. If it's largely priced in and the market's expecting something, which is the case most of the time, there's the opportunity is to once the announcement happens, you get a lot of whipsaw really quickly, and if you're biased in one direction or the other, you can take advantage of that whipsaw. So say you're bullish and the Fed comes out with a rate announcement that's the market's expected, but you get like a sharp little sell-off just as a reflexive reaction. That can be like an entry. So it can create opportunity, but I don't like holding into them because there can be a lot of whipsaw. I mean, it just creates a bunch of volatility basically, and sometimes it creates the move, sometimes it just can chop you up. It's just another intraday catalyst.
I remember you saying last time we chatted, if my memory is correct, that at the end of every day you're basically cash. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like, I make periodic trades here and there, but you close out your positions, and that's just for the aftermarket, before market, etc. You just don't want to be exposed to that.
No, it's just I'd love to be exposed. It's not when I go into a trade, I have kind of a 15 to 30 minute time horizon. So if I'm looking to, if I can hold overnight, the thing with the futures is um, you can get some pretty big gaps. Like futures are, when you're trading the index and you're trading the futures, it's a leverage product, right? So, a 1% move might not be a lot for just trading a regular stock, but for the index, that's a big move, because you've got all these
Right.
contracts on. So I really don't sleep well when I've done it, but I don't sleep when I have an index position on, just because you can get big moves overnight. And I'd like to, though. It's in the plans. I'd love to do like some swing trading, not necessarily in the index, but more kind of sectors and individual stocks. I got to incorporate it into my plan. It's been kind of a long-term project, and like I said, just diversify and slow things down. Right? It's nice to have some ideas. It's nice to have money working for you while I'm not sitting at the screen. Right? I got
Well,
something
that's
I think is going to play out over a month. Just let it play out, and I don't have to necessarily be here all day. I mean, that sounds pretty appealing. It'll happen.
well. I know you and I've talked about that back in the past, especially when we've been on vacation together, and I'm kind of like whatever. Like I've said probably here on the channel before, if I went away on holidays for a month and never had any internet access or whatever, I wouldn't even worry. I wouldn't even think about my accounts, just because they're structured so that, I mean, if unless there's a catastrophic event, I'm going to be fine. And even if there was a catastrophic event as far as the markets are concerned, I would weather that too. So I don't think about it. Whereas in your style, which I mean clearly isn't for anyone. I'm curious if there's anybody on the chat group. We've had some. I know there's a lot of people who are use technical analysis as part of their analysis. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with a social media app called Blossom, Dylan, but there's a lot of chatter
Mhm.
on there, and there's a lot of people who are more technically inclined, right? Um,
What is
and
it?
if you
Blossom?
are,
What is Blossom?
it's a social media app. It's like Discord, I guess you would say, but it's geared entirely to Canadian investors. So yeah, you come on. It's designed probably more so for newer investors who just want to come on and run ideas by people. Or every day there's the way you do is you link for example, if you're Quest Trade, if you're Wealth Simple, if you are Interactive Broker, you link your account to the Blossom app. And so your accounts are basically live trade. The other members can see what you hold in your portfolio when you make trades, etc. And so it's
Oh, interesting.
instead of just coming on and saying, "Gee, I made trades yesterday, I bought a Lambo," it shows the activity in your account, etc. And so it's really it's a good app, and especially like I say for like I have my portfolio on there, so people can go on and say, "Okay, here's this old 61-year-old guy who's been in the business. How does he invest?" And so we greatly discourage copy trading. Like, don't go on and buy what I have just because I own it. And conversely, you look at the younger portfolios of say a 25-year-old guy who has bigger bets typically in maybe in the tech space or whatever. So yeah, it's really good. If those of you who maybe aren't uh, part of Blossom, if you're watching you're not, go ahead and give it a try. I think it's blossomsocial.com. And on that note, I'm going to just click along the bottom of your screen here. We had last week, Brandon and I, the Blossom team, we were in Calgary, and we had a blast with the students from the area there who could attend. We had about 100 or so people came out to one of the craft beer house there and had a really nice evening. We are going to be in Toronto on August the 1st, and we're going to be in Montreal on August the 3rd. So if you are from the area there, let's see if I can get a link here. I think I can get a link. Let me just see if I can copy that here, and I'm going to see if I can post it into the comments here. I'm not as adept at this as Brandon is, but this is a Toronto social link. You should be able to see that on your screen there now. And I'm going to throw in the Montreal one as well. So if you haven't already picked up your ticket from there, it's a lot of fun. It's so cool, Dylan, because it kind of reminds me, my career was meeting with clients face to face, for 25 years plus. And when I retired, I missed that social element. And so, now we're doing the online stuff, and you can reach a lot more people. But one of the things that I really loved about the Vancouver event, which was just over a month ago, I think, and then the Calgary event earlier this week, was just sitting down with people, looking in their eyes and shaking their hands and getting a picture taken and what have you. It just really connects the humanity of it again. So hopefully a lot of you will be able to join.
I feel that, man. That's one of the things I don't like about what I do is I'm sitting here in a room by myself. I miss, as much as I hated my old job, I really miss my coworkers, man, because it's just, having that connection with people and just, you're all doing something that maybe you don't like, but at least you can goof off and enjoy each other's company. And
yeah. You can bitch about work, right? At least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just bitch about it all day and complain about your boss. Yeah, I miss that so much. And just even like I've been on a few trading floors in the past, and man, what a buzz that is! Like being in a room full of other guys, and I guess a few girls too, and everyone's trading, and there's they got the news broadcasting, like the squawk, the news squawk, and
yeah,
and just people are calling out ideas, and man, it's just I know, just having that connection with other people that are doing the same thing. I really miss that. I'm going to try to. There's an office down in Puerto Rico. I might go and check out. I don't know. It'd be nice to be kind of connected to a scene again. I miss that.
I hear you, and I'm lucky that I had the one-on-one and then the scene. But yeah, this is a picture from our event in Calgary, and this was as many people as we could squeeze into the thing. So Max, he's the founder and CEO of Blossom, so he's the guy with the cowboy hat on there. I think the deal was originally everybody to wear cowboy hats, but as the pre-show developed, more and more caps were being tossed off there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. So
I can see. You're getting some turnout now. That's good for you, man.
Yeah, this is a little piece of it there. Good food and what have you. So yeah, it's good. Let me look at a couple more comments here, Dylan. And this is, I think, in the back of my mind, I hear Brandon say something like, if you're enjoying this or you want to support Dylan here, like give it a thumbs up. I don't know if you could even give a thumbs up to a live event, but if you can, go ahead and do that. Rory made a couple of comments here, and the one I'll just sort of say here. You talked about being very humble, but he also said he's right on one thing: it's a marathon, not a sprint. And even though I think you run a series of sprints every single day, the journey itself is a marathon, and you've adapted your style as the years have gone by, right? You've just been learning and learning and learning.
Oh, absolutely. You never stop learning. You can't, or you become obsolete. And I think markets are always changing. I mean, there are patterns that still work, but a lot of the kind of textbook ones, like when you first start out, people are learning head and shoulders and cup and handles and things.
Right.
Markets have gotten a lot more sophisticated, especially since the majority of the volume now is done through computer algorithms, and there's a lot of those. There's a lot of bots that are trading and scalping for pennies and trying to sniff out other orders and positioning, and you get there's some patterns don't work, but new patterns emerge. Like ultimately, when you look at a chart, it's the distilling of all the actions of every participant, and ultimately people or even bots, a bot is programmed to do the same thing over and over, and people, we're kind of pattern recognition machines, and so we have our strategies and we do the same things over and over. So even if some patterns lose their edges, because all the participants are kind of doing their same things, new patterns emerge, right? So but in order to see those, you kind of have to be dialed and you have to be willing to learn and learn some new things. And yeah, markets are always adapting. They move a lot quicker now. There's it used to be, and I find a lot of technicians have frustrations with, is you see a good setup and then it goes, but you're supposed to be trained to wait for pullbacks, and get on the next pullback. And when the market sniffs out like some offside positioning, and they just put the pedal to the metal and they just gun it the other way, and they don't give you a chance to buy it, and that's what's can be really frustrating. I've noticed that a lot ever since the great financial crisis. I've noticed a lot more of that. Every time you get a bottom, the market eventually bottoms, it just screams off the lows and it doesn't give you a chance to
Right.
get in. And then everyone's like, oh, it's going to retest the lows, or we're going to get our pattern, our chance to get on board. And when there's that anxiety about missing a move, the market just goes and it doesn't look back. And it doesn't, if you're a patient trader, investor, waiting for better prices, it doesn't give them to you. It forces you to pay up. And I don't remember seeing that,
Right.
in the earlier years. And so, yeah, things move quick now. They can be more violent. It's a little more competitive, but it's there's still opportunities. There's I haven't starved to death, right? So
You might want to buy some J&J or one of those companies just as a backup there, Dylan.
no, that is the goal. I would like to have kind of a third of my money into some kind of portfolio like that, like a fixed income dividend, not too much fixed income, but like a good dividend portfolio.
Right.
And then park some in real estate and then have just a trading account. So I don't know. Whenever I get around to that, I'm sure I'll want to talk to you because I'd like to know some of what you know.
I think back to a book I read a long time ago. It might have been The Intelligence Investor. I'm not 100% certain on this, but one of the concepts I heard was with the, you identify a trend, or there's a system that you put in place and it seems to work. But the concept was the better that system is, the more effective it is, other people are going to catch on to it, and it'll basically nullify your advantage in that regard. I think it was maybe Ben Graham or somebody who said that. And I guess that was back in the old day when you had to figure it out, by yourself, on paper and with your calculator. But now, like you say, everything's so algorithmically ridden. Is that a word? Driven?
Algorithmically driven. Yeah.
Is that a word? I don't know if I might have invented a new word. Driven by algorithms. And so, like you say, the fractions of a second that a human being can't keep up with, I think the markets are going to continue to function. But obviously, if you think back to 20 years ago to now, are you saying that you're seeing that in the trading, the big difference there and the speed of it more than anything else?
Yeah, the speed of moves, once something sets up, when everything lines up, the speed of the moves is really fast, and not just when everything lines up, but sometimes everything lines up and too many people are on board, and then it fails, and then they gun it the other way, and they don't give you a chance to get out. Like some of the greatest trading opportunities are when everyone's wrong, right? When something happens and people are kind of sitting around scratching their heads like, what the hell just happened? It's going against me, but everyone has their kind of thesis of why they're in the market or why they're in this, and so they just kind of freeze, and a lot of people are just frozen out, and then they just keep gunning it the other way and force everybody out, or force everybody in if a lot of people are short. I see more of that now, and they're really violent moves. I think it's just because there's ways to kind of look at positioning. You can look at where traders are positioned now. If for example, if you for futures markets, they have I forget what you can see where kind of the commercial hedgers are positioned versus like the speculators and the hedge funds. You can look at the options market and see where are the prices, where there's a lot of call open interest or a lot of puts. Those could be places where the market is looking for something to go, or what's the skew, like what's the directional bias, and so you can see. And then when it gets too one-sided, they run it the other way, and they force everybody. When everyone's on one side of the boat, you just tilt it the other way, and everyone gets forced out. I forget what your question was. Sorry if I'm rambling here.
I think it was just more like the differences in the speed of trades now, or like you use the term violence a lot, and I guess you're just saying like the swings are so much more than they were before, and
I think so. Yeah.
Not so much bouncing around the bottom, I guess.
No, no. These V bottoms have driven people nuts ever since they started happening in 2008. Yeah. They don't give you that chance to get in, but yeah, there's I see the algorithm action. There's a lot of a lot of whipsaw. Like I got a 1 tick chart here of the Nasdaq, and you can just you see the spikes, and you can see the little buy and sell programs, and there's a lot more of that now because there is so much algorithmic trading, and but it's part of the game, right? Like indexes are really noisy, and so you just have to deal with that and focus on time frames where there isn't that much noise.
I got to ask you about what I think might be an opportunity for someone like yourself is all these meme trades. What was the company this morning I was reading about? There's a short squeeze on
DWAC?
On DWAC. I don't think, was that a short squeeze, or that I think that's just because they announced some deal or something that came to terms or whatever. But there's another one I read. It's kind of more commonly. I don't know if a lot of people know what DWAC is, but I know you would know for sure. But yeah, the trades. If we think back to last year, where we saw like the Bed Bath and Beyonds and the GameStops, etc., where I mean you kind of know those are going to spike up. They're going to tank. Do you ever participate in that type of? Oh no, don't, because you trade indices, so they're not going to have a big impact on an index, right?
I watch them. Like that's a spectator sport for me. Those meme stocks, just because it's too crazy. But it's fascinating to watch it and how they work. With I don't know if you know about the gamma squeezes, how that works, where where they what they do, what traders can do, and they tried to say, oh, it's a bunch of retailers. There's a lot of institutional money playing this game as well, but they try to pretend like it's it's this Wall Street Bets Reddit crowd that's really moving all these companies there. Anyway, but what they do is
Are you saying it's not?
It is, but you look at some of the
consensus.
Well, that's the narrative, is that it's Wall Street Bets taking it to Wall Street. And if you look at some of the, because I subscribe to a feed where it shows like a lot. It shows big options orders, so you can see if somebody places a huge options order, it just things across my screen, just out of curiosity, and see if any of them are on the indices. But a lot of those big bets, they're sophisticated players, right? They're big options traders, and they're placing sweeper bets where they're hitting huge amounts of money, and they're hitting all these exchanges at once to try to gobble up as many contracts as possible. Like, they're sophisticated orders where your average kind of Robinhood Redditor is not doing that, right? They don't have that. First of all, if you're a big player, you're not typing in the comment section,
So you're telling me everybody who's typing into our comments on this live stream today are not big players?
No, those are all brilliant, wonderful, sexy people. All of them. No, I mean, no, I'm saying, no, I just meant like the players. Big money moves markets. Small players don't move market. Now there was a lot of participation, but I was just there's some, that narrative was kind of not
overblown a little bit.
Not exactly true. But yeah, so what they would do is they'll buy a whole bunch of out of the money calls in big size for something that is running, and something that has a big short position. And what that does is, when you have a whole bunch of out of the money call buying, the dealers on the side of those calls, they have to buy the stock to hedge themselves. And when you get a really cheap out of the money call, the dealers put on a little bit of a long position just to protect themselves. But as those out of the money calls come into the money, the dealer hedging, in order to protect themselves, goes way up. It ramps right up, and they're forced to buy the stock just to get what they call delta neutral to protect themselves. So it's like a short squeeze on options dealers. Like if you buy an option, say an option contract at $1 and it runs to $5, great, you've made 400%. The dealer on the other side of that is not going to sit there and let themselves get blown up and say, oh, I took a 400% loss. They're going to, if they're on the wrong side, if they're short an option on the wrong side of it, they're going to buy the underlying or sell the underlying, whatever, just to protect themselves. So it was that kind of mechanical action that was really fueling those meme stocks. And again, it's interesting to watch, but it's too crazy for me. I'm an old man now. I gotta
Hey, careful! You're talking to an old man, so you're still a
I
young
mean,
buck.
maybe if I was just starting out with my student loan money again, I would
Yeah, if you
play
had that back
around.
again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that this all that type of action is it hurting the market? Is it hurting investing in general, or is it just we'll figure it out and it's just a something that the market has to learn to deal with?
The meme stocks.
Yeah, just that.
Well,
Well,
a lot of that went away. Sorry, go ahead.
like everything you talked about, the meme stocks, but also just algorithmic trading, the speed of trading, and the orders that go out, they get canceled, and all the new technology. Is it helping or hurting?
Uh, it's I don't I don't think it's hurting. It depends what you're doing. If you're if you're doing your research, it's I don't think that's hurting.
Okay.
Markets like people. Most of the volume is algorithmically done, but you're not. It's not like every human trader is paired up with a computer that's taking their money. Like a lot of them kind of cannibalize each other, and
Mm.
so I mean, what was hurting a lot of I guess one thing that was hurting is the front running. So there was that book by
Oh,
what's his
sure.
name? It exposed how was it Citadel and those other firms, and
Yeah.
what the exchanges and brokers are doing is they're selling order flow to those exchanges, and
Yeah.
they're or no to those market maker firms, and they're all co-located with the exchanges, so they can see your orders and they can front run
Right.
your order, and then scalp you for a penny or half a cent.
Yeah.
And that I would see that all the time when I used to trade equities, and man, it was maddening because there'd be a bunch of shares on the offer, and you go to hit it and it disappears, and then you take
Right.
your order away and then it reappears. So it's like one of the analogies I used was imagine you're at the grocery store and you're walking through the aisle and you see a product on the shelf you want to get and you reach for it, and just before you grab it, another hand reaches and grabs it and says, "Sorry, I got the last one, but I'll sell this to you for $1 more." And that just happens
Right. Right.
over and over again, right? And that hurts active traders obviously because you're not getting your fills, and they're front running you. It should be illegal, and maybe one day it will be.
I think it is
Um,
illegal. I know as an advisor, I certainly couldn't front run.
yeah, but
Yeah.
they're doing, and that's a big problem.
Mm.
That costs any investor because you're placing orders, and if you're placing a market order, if you're limit orders doesn't matter, but market orders here they're shaving off a cent or two
You're
or more
right.
here
Yeah.
and there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what I don't think that technology hurts though. I mean, a lot of the technology has allowed people to participate, right?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, I used to have a phone up broke. I used to pay 80 to 120 aside, and now
Right.
I pay like $2 for
Right.
even more size. Um, yeah, I don't think I don't think it's hurted it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that for the most part, Dylan. I think that for
What
like
do you
what
think? Yeah.
what I feel bad for in one side, but I don't on the other side is, and there's a million stories of if we look at the meme stocks, which I think they're manipulative in my opinion, and you get people who get caught up, and it's the FOMO or whatever the case may be, and make really bad decisions, but
Yep.
put a bunch of their money or all of their money into these trades and end up at the other end of the trade, and they're the ones that get killed. And I say, if it's too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I mean, you shouldn't do it, but still, a lot of people get hurt. And from a guy with an advisory career, one of the things that killed me was to hear stories of people who were afraid to invest because of a bad experience they had. Right. So yeah, I don't know how many of those people are. Probably it's in the minority, but yeah, I feel on one hand I feel
If
kind of bad for people like that. You get
Okay, yeah,
you
I thought
get
you were talking about
cheated.
like kind of just the technology with markets and
Well,
algos and all that. Oh, the meme stuff. Yeah,
hmm,
it's that's a problem because it's turning. You could argue the markets are a casino already, but it's turning it to an even bigger casino.
right.
And
Yeah.
those meme stocks. I mean, that is pure gambling. Now, some people uh, you can make money gambling, right? There's some people who understand the game and they know when to get out. But yeah, oh yeah, a lot of people just get crushed and
Yeah.
get lured into it. It sounds exciting, but it's just yeah. I hear about those stories all the time, and whenever I talk to people who are considering getting into trading, I try to scare them a little bit actually. Like I went over, my buddy of mine's dad was opening up a brokerage account recently, and he asked, his dad was wondering if I could help him out. So I've met him before. He's helped me out with stuff. So yeah, I went over and kind of set up his charts and all that, and just kind of talked to him. And then a week later, I asked my buddy, "Oh, how's your dad doing?" And he's like, "He's not placing any trades. He's scared the hell out of him. He's terrified." I was like, "Good, freaking good," because he doesn't need to get in there and start rolling dice. Like he's retired. He's successful. Just because you're bored doesn't mean you need to blow your retirement savings in the markets. And another buddy of mine's dad was saying like, "Oh, he's talking about getting into trading." And I said, "Well, what's your strategy?" And then he paused and he just said, "Buy low, sell high," right? And I'm like, okay, you're not opening an account. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I don't think we have time to get into it today, Dylan, but I remember in a previous conversation you going through like everything you have done to get yourself up to speed. And I've never personally spoken with someone who knows more or lives the industry more than you do, and I know you've worked for institutions, you worked for years and years sort of on your own there. And when I say work, I mean it's not a job. You don't get paid unless you make money on the markets, right? No one's paying you to do this. But I think I guess in anything, even in the buy and hold, the longer term strategy, you still can't come in and just start doing it. You learn along the way, and I'm sure even now you're learning. There's a comment here I see on my screen I wanted to share with you, and it's from I've got to be careful here, Carson. The member's name is Carson, and I think you've commented before on you're kind of more my age than the rest of the group here. But a quick, Paul asked me how old I am, so I'm 61. But Carson, I think, is kind of similar. I'm not really sure. But he says in his comment, "This is great, Mark. I concur with your guest. He talks perfect common sense. I'm on his page." So for someone who's on the channel here, Dylan, who is talking about a lifestyle that is so different from what we normally talk about here, and Carson is, so kudos to you, but Carson is a very common sense, he comments all the time on our videos and always shares his experiences and his wisdom. So I think that speaks pretty well of you, young man, to be coming on here and impressing someone like Carson.
just trying to help. I mean, common sense, goes a long way in trading and investing, just because it's really easy to kind of get off track and do something stupid and cost yourself a lot of time and money and stress. And so yeah, I mean, I know you guys are an investing group, and I don't want to encourage anyone to get into trading. I think you guys I like what you and Brandon are doing. I think it's for most people, you don't need to be a trader. Learn as much as you can. The markets are, you need to find them fascinating in order to really get anywhere, because it's a never-ending learning curve. But you don't need to be a hero. You don't need to. You're not going to get rich quick. It's just slow and steady. Just kind of learn as much as you can, absorb as much as you can, make what you like. You're gonna be more drawn to certain strategies, certain instruments, certain time frames, and just everyone has to build. You can learn from people, and it's great too. I've had mentors as well, and I know you're mentoring a lot of people, but you're never going to be exactly like your mentor. Like, we're all wired differently. We're all going to gravitate towards different things. We have different risk tolerances and personalities, and so what was my point? I lost my point.
Well, I think basically where I heard you going was just more so that everybody's different, and you never stop learning, but it's going to be tailored to who you are. And heck, I worked alongside so many advisors who had exactly the same strategies as I did over the years, but none of us were exactly the same. We all had our own little tweak to it, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, is when you go down this path of learning how markets work, learning how to trade or invest or do both, you have to build your own relationship with the markets, and you take things from other people, and people that are willing to help, and there's going to be a lot of trial and error, and there's going to be certain strategies and certain things that speak to you. That's the direction you have to go in, right? I know if there's some people have there's models for portfolios. I know you did a lot of portfolio construction, and it's a formula. It's ratios of bonds and equities, and that stuff's easier to replicate. But like an actual going into the markets and picking stocks and trying to time it, like you have to put in a lot of screen time. There's resources. There's a lot of resources, a lot more now than when I first started.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
you're gonna learn from them, but don't try to copy somebody exactly. You have to, again, I say, build your own relationship with the markets and kind of and blaze. It can be a similar path to somebody else, but it's going to be unique. And yeah,
It's funny, Dylan, as you were saying that, I was thinking back to, I guess, about 5 years ago. Oh, I think it was actually Aurora Cannabis today. That was, I think it popped up on a thing. Oh, those shares are tumbling. Oh yeah, never mind. one of the companies, but yeah, there's a comment I want to get in. We're almost out of time here, but from Chris. And so interesting here. Chris says, "Hi Mark, I'm super excited to start working as an investment representative on Monday. I'll be working with 5 portfolio managers split in 2 teams. First job in the industry." Keeping you updated, and I think of our paths, Dylan. That we came through, and we both said it. And at the event that we were at on Calgary. In Calgary on Monday, we had a panel and just sort of sharing some final thoughts. And one of the things that came to my mind when we were there, because there's so many people of different, mostly beginners in the room, but a lot of people who had invested for a while as also. And I just said one of the things that you can never ever forget is you always learn. We start off with being humble. And you never stop learning. And I spoke with someone at the event there. I'm not sure if this is you, Chris, or not. You said you're keeping you updated, and who was going into the industry. And I thought the best way to get into the industry, and you kind of alluded to this, Dylan, is to work with other people around you, who you can watch and learn from, and just soak it all in and learn as much as you can. And when you're learning stuff, some of it you'll filter out and go, that's not what I want to do, and replicate, and other stuff you'll go, yeah, and you'll latch onto it depending on your personality.
exactly.
So.
And good for Chris. That's one of the things. I wish I did that. Like I wish I wish I went and worked with some portfolio managers, and just because then you can you get licensed to manage money on a discretional basis too. Like you gotta. I've looked at that, and there's hoops you gotta jump through, and one of those is you have to have experience working under either as a portfolio manager or under one. Yeah. And so that's I know, good for you, Chris. I wish I did that when I was younger.
Yeah,
but,
it's great to do that. So yeah, keep that up and soak it up. Very quickly here, we have about a minute and a half left. Carson says, this is the fellow I was talking to. He says, build your common sense, build your own relationship. And he says, yes, Mark, I'm 71. So Carson actually has a decade more wisdom than I do. And then a few, good conversation. Always a pleasure to chat, to join the chat on Friday. So. Dylan, I just want to say again, thank you so much. I mean, I know that you've got your things on the go, and when Brandon couldn't be here, I thought of you, and I just said, I wonder if you'd be able to, or willing to come on just during market hours. So obviously nothing major happened. I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on the screen, but you just sort of taken over here and controlled things. So
I set up my phone, I got the camera in here, and then I've got my monitors on either side. So here's your face, and then like a few centimeters over is the chart that I'm watching. So it's like
you mentioned you said
I'm watching every tick as I'm talking.
You said you're watching the tick chart. I think you said on the NASDAQ. Is that literally like every tick on the NASDAQ?
I have a 1 tick chart. Yeah, it's among other ones.
I maybe have like a 1 month chart.
Yeah.
No more than that, but cool. Yeah, so a lot of people here sort of saying thanks. So yeah, again, thank you very much, Dylan. We're going to wrap up this conversation, but next Friday, as far as I know, Brandon should be back from his fishing trip, and I'm sure he'll have some pictures to share and some stories to tell. And I was actually out for the first time a couple of days ago, and I'm fortunate here in Paul River, we're on the water, and I was out on a boat, my neighbor's boat, probably 500 feet out in front of the house, and caught a nice big Chinook salmon, and we had some for dinner yesterday, and we're going to have, actually 2 days ago, and we're going to have some more over the course of the summer. Put a good chunk in the freezer there, so it's good.
I've always wanted to do that, man. Because like I know how to prepare. I can fillet and butterfly and do all that. I've always wanted to catch a fish and then cut it up and cook it that night. And
Well, we're gonna have to do
that's-
that. We're gonna have to conspire with one of my neighbors because I don't have a boat, and I'm not gonna get one. There's
No.
so much work, but I think probably 80% of my neighbors here do have boats, and so we get invited out a fair number of times. So we'll get some salmon one of the
Sounds fun.
trips you're up here, Dylan, and you can cook it up because I know you are a phenomenal chef. So yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, Dylan, back to your trades. Hopefully you make some money today. Thanks again for everybody attending. I'm going to end the broadcast and remind you in this video, there should be a link to our Investing Academy. If it's something you want to learn more about, feel free to click on that. If you haven't joined Blossom, yeah, that's real easy. It's free to join. So just go ahead and join the Blossom app. And we will see you on Monday for those of you who tune in for my news video on Monday. Thanks, Dylan.
Good luck, everyone. Take care.